Welcome to the latest edition of Mob Talk Sit Down. I'm Dave Stratweiser.
And I'm George Anastasia.
George Joey Merlino, back behind bars, Federal Correctional Institution at Coleman, right outside of Orlando in Florida.
Right, about 3 hours from his home in Boca Raton, and that's going to be where he's going to be for at least the next year, maybe a little bit longer.
Misses Christmas this year.
Absolutely.
All right, George, 2 years behind bars for Joey Merlino. He's probably going to do 18, 19 months of that and then go to a halfway house. But from what I'm hearing, he wasn't real happy about this whole situation.
I think nobody's ever going to be happy when you're going away. But, you know, Joey's done this before. Joey's very adaptable, and he knows how to deal with prison life. Best case scenario, you know, he gets into a halfway house within a year or so. He's also got a shot. He thinks he's got a shot at the 4 months he served for that parole violation that turned out to be illegal. That's 4 months he put in that he wants to get credit for.
He wants to get that back.
Right, which will reduce his time as well. So, you know, I think he's there for at least a year before he gets to a halfway house. So he's going to miss the holidays, going to miss his family, that kind of thing. But, you know, I was doing the numbers the other day. Joey's 56. I think he spent 15, 16 years of his life in prison
almost
already.
A third of his life.
Yeah, so, I mean, he knows how to do the time.
This has got to get real tiring for a guy. I'm 57 years old. It's a lot different serving time at 57 than when he was 40 back in 2000, around that area right there. That's got to take its toll.
I think it does, and I think, you know, he's realistic enough to know going into this thing. I think that's one of the reasons he didn't go for a new trial. The stakes were just too high. If he had been convicted of the more serious charges, looking at 10, 12 years, that's a big chunk out of your life. So it was the smart decision, I guess. And if there's nothing else coming down the road, I think he sees the light at the end of the tunnel, and he'll be back out with his family and back in Florida. Ed
Jacobs, his lawyer, told me this week, Joey's a practical guy. He knew the odds if they went back to trial that he'd probably get if he lost, and it was 10-2 or 11-1 to convict him in the last mistrial. If he lost that, he'd probably get every day of whatever sentence they could give him.
Yeah, I mean, given the judge they were facing and the circumstances, I think absolutely he would have got hammered, and he knew that. So 2 years as opposed to 10 or 12, that's not a bad trade-off.
All right, let's walk through what goes on in Philadelphia while Joey's gone here now. We have a street boss, allegedly, introduced in New York, Mike Lancelotti, who's supposedly running things down here, the day-to-day operations on the street. There's not a lot of operations to run, but supposedly he's the guy in charge, if you believe what was testified to in court in New York.
And that's an amazing story. I mean, there's a guy who's always been under the radar, and even now he's under the radar. So, you know, it's hard to judge just what's going on out there, because, as you said, there's not a lot at stake. A lot of these guys don't want to go back to jail. They're trying to legitimize themselves. So I think in terms of the Philadelphia crime family, I mean, most of those guys want to be under the radar. So if Lance is the boss, it's very apropos.
But they still get together. We have a video of them down at the social club, whatever you want to call it, clubhouse, down in South Philadelphia. That seems to me to be not a smart move, to be out in the public. But their explanation is, we're all friends. We grew up in the same neighborhood together. We like to get together. Yeah, but every day?
Well, you know, that's a South Philly thing. You know, I remember Ronnie Previty when they had that big party at the Ben Franklin, and everybody was saying, what's it about, what's it about? This is Joey's, the baptism for one of his kids. And Ronnie said, you know, sometimes a party's just a party.
I like that line, by the way.
Yeah, and I think sometimes these guys, that, you know, they come up in South Philadelphia, you hang out with your friends, that's part of it. But certainly, I think the associations raise questions, and I think the feds got their eye on it, and you got to know what's going to happen, if anything, next.
All right, the dark cloud, though, hanging here is what we've talked about forever and forever. What else are they looking at? And they're clearly looking at something. There's been meetings. Somebody described a meeting of all the investigators to me back in June, like 30 guys in a room, and a lot of energy, all focused in kind of one direction, the Philadelphia crime family.
Yeah, I think the guys running the FBI organized crime office, we've said this before, they want to make some of those unsolved murders. That's what's driving them. Are they ever going to get there? I don't know, but that's the big jeopardy for all these guys. Yeah,
guy I talked to this week said everybody knows what they did. Everybody knows what the possibilities are. The question is, can the feds do something about it? And if they do, that's not good news for anybody right there.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, I've had discussions with a couple of these guys who are upset with this constant pressure from the FBI. And my response is, some of these agents believe you literally got away with murder, and they're not going to give up. They're not going to let go. That's what's driving them. Whether they can ever prove it is exactly the key question.
All right, let's address some of the comments we get on our Mob Talk Sit Down page, and a lot of them are, leave Joey alone. Leave those guys alone. That kind of thing. Can you understand that?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, but Joey, for good or bad. Joey became the face of organized crime in Philadelphia the same way John Gotti became the face of organized crime in New York. You know, and part of that, it's interesting you bring that up today, because this is something I was thinking the other day. People say, you know, they don't bother me, I don't bother them, leave them alone, don't glamorize them. And there's some truth to that. However, there's a case in New Jersey, a civil case just filed in New Jersey against Brad Sirkin, an associate of Joey's, running a landfill in Palmyra, in which he was supposed to be recycling wood and debris into mulch, and instead he's taking all kind of contaminated industrial waste and dumping it, and that's despoiling the aquifer over there. That's the mob having an impact on everybody. And that's sometimes we lose sight of that. Is, yeah, we write about these guys, we talk about these guys, but there's a bottom line in all of this, and the bottom line is this is an impact on society, and that's why it's important that you know what's going on. All
right, let's flesh that out a little bit. The New Jersey Attorney General filed a lawsuit this week against Bradley Sirkin, one of Joey's top associates, who also got had a guilty plea in the East Coast LCN case in a healthcare fraud situation.
And the case in Tampa as well.
And the case in Tampa as well. His company, and basically what they did, and I did a big investigative piece on this, was let hundreds of truckloads of material that shouldn't have gone to that landfill line up along Route 73 and 130 in South Jersey and go into that Palmyra landfill and allegedly dump it there, materials they shouldn't have. The DEP issued orders, fines, and whatever, and now it's come to a lawsuit against Sirkin and his company to clean that mess up. And Palmyra also has a lawsuit against them as well for like $10 million.
Yeah, it's called environmental justice, the AG's talking about. Whether they're going to ever get any money out of these guys is problematic. Sirkin's doing, I think, 46 months after pleading guilty in that medical insurance fraud case in Tampa. So I don't know that there's any money to be gotten, but I think the AG is making a statement here that, you know, the environment is something we got to protect, and here's an example of the mob despoiling the environment.
Now, we've seen that landfill up close and personal. It's a mess over there. We've seen pictures of it. The State Commission of Investigation over in New Jersey also did an investigation on this. They had pictures, they had checks going back and forth from organized crime families. Touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really good case the SCI did, where they laid out Sirkin's associations with different organized crime figures, and one of the things they found was this $50,000 check, supposedly a loan from a mobster in New York to the company, a loan that was never repaid. And the inference was the mob had an interest in that whole operation, and this was the mob at work in Palmyra. So yeah, I mean, the SCI laid it all out, and now this is kind of the repercussions and the follow-up. The AG is taking some kind of action. You know, it's an action, and it's important. Whether it's going to result in anything, as I said, you can sue these guys for all you want. There's no deep pockets here. But I think you can address the problem and maybe send out a message that, you know, environmental justice is as important as criminal justice.
Even when organized crime is involved, obviously.
Absolutely. I mean, not for nothing was Tony Soprano a solid waste management consultant. The mob has always been involved in that industry.
Carmine Franco and years ago up in North Jersey.
Yeah, you can go on and on with that stuff. Absolutely.
George, another one of Joey Merlino's associates, Peter Tuccio, 25-year-old Peter Tuccio, in trouble in New York, under indictment there. A real messy situation there. Yeah,
it's arson, extortion, and kind of liar, pants on fire.
Yeah,
the whole thing came apart on these guys. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, it was an extortion case, I think back in 2015.
Yeah.
Right. Gambino's shaking down a guy he's not paying, and according to the indictment, Tuccio and two other guys confront the guy and ultimately set his Mercedes-Benz on fire.
And he chased him into a facility, asked him to come out. He didn't. They followed him an hour after he gets home, parks the car, boom, the car goes up.
And there's a surveillance video, picks up one of the, not Tuccio, but one of the other guys running away from the car with a pant leg on fire.
And then there's more video at a hospital.
Right, he shows up to be treated
with Tuccio.
Right, exactly. So, you know, it's one of these things where you know, the gang that couldn't shoot straight, the gang that can't think straight. We had some of that down here in Philadelphia during the Stanford Marino Wars, and this is kind of another example that the quality of the organized crime figures, the intelligence level doesn't seem to be as high as it used to be.
And this was all about an old-time John Gotti guy who's now deceased in a Gambino family who used to get his shakedown money from this businessman, didn't get it, sent these guys to go help collect it. Right after this all happens, he mysteriously gets his money, and the guy who set the fire pleads early to this case.
Yes.
The other two guys now are under indictment.
Right.
What's that all about?
Well, I mean, there'll be a trial or they'll end up pleading out, but it's another example of this is what the mob is about. It's about extortion. It's about grabbing money wherever you can, whenever you can, and it's about using violence as a leverage. That's what this was about.
Yeah. He's a young guy, 25 years old.
25 years old, you know.
Got some connections in other places as well.
And I mean, you know, he surfaces around Joey during the trial in New York, and the question is, where's that connection come from?
Yeah.
Who knows?
And a lot of people, after Joey pled guilty back in April and was seen walking with this guy at the courthouse, leaving the courthouse, he's been seen on social media at bars and things like that with Joey, here in Philadelphia meeting people. We're wondering, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Now we know who he is, but the question is, what was Joey doing around him?
You know what I mean? And you know, I don't want to defend Joey, but Joey's a charismatic guy, and young guys want to be around him.
They flock to him.
Yeah, and I think that unfortunately for Joey, that's part of the problem.
Let me hang out with you. Let me drive you around. Let me do some favors for you.
Yeah, and then you go talk, I was with Joey the other day. That, you know, that works, it doesn't work to his advantage eventually. I mean, law enforcement is always watching, and this is just another example of a young wannabe hanging around Joey, and he gets jammed up. Yeah, unfortunately under indictment now, out on bail, $700,000, but he's got problems ahead. Yeah, it looks like, you know, when you got video and you got that kind of evidence, I don't know where you're going to go with this case. Okay, George, as Joey Merlino gets comfortable in prison over the Christmas holidays here, we're going to move on to disorganized crime. Yeah, a story of pagans, pills, and a horrific murder, and life plus 30 for one of the convicted individuals. All right, we'll see you next time.